Hello, I'm Jeff Darrington, the Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at Graylog, and today I'm going to run you through upgrading from Elasticsearch to OpenSearch for the 4.3 Graylog platform. Today I've got Dan McDowell from our professional services. He's our professional services engineer, and he'll be walking through upgrading a small system with me. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
You bet. So just to preface where we're going to go from here, I want to make sure that we understand a few things with this upgrade. So we're going to look at going on this system. It's a single node system. This system is primarily a test system. So we're doing this upgrade so that you can understand what is involved in the back end from the upgrades perspective. We will have encryption disabled. We're not running encryption in the Elasticsearch cluster or other. We also have a note that you do need to be on Graylog version 4.3 first. You do have to be running Elasticsearch version 7.10.2. If you're higher than that, that particular issue will have to be resolved before you try to upgrade to OpenSearch. So it's very imperative that you do stay on version 7.10.2 of Elasticsearch, and MongoDB version 4.2 is recommended. However, we do support older versions of MongoDB. Looking forward, what we'll look at is the basic steps, but we'll be doing the upgrade live and showing the console and the information that we're doing during the upgrade. So we'll be looking at upgrading to 4.3, but we've already done that. So we're not going to cover that upgrade. We wanted to make sure this video was as brief as we could with the most information. We do suggest that you back up your Elasticsearch data. What would you suggest, Dan?
Generally, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can snapshot your Elastic cluster. You can snapshot it as a VM. Personally, my preference, if you have the storage available, is to make a full copy of it, and we'll use the copy in our new OpenSearch cluster or node, so that if we have to roll back to Elastic for whatever reason, the data is still intact, and we don't risk corrupting or damaging that data set.
That's a good point to note. And that's why when I mentioned we're doing this on a single system, Dan had brought some points in. There are definitely more than one method or multiple methods of doing the upgrade, but we wanted to show you this upgrade so you can understand what's going on in the back end. The other one in the step of the processes will be installing and configuring OpenSearch and going through the very specific things in configuration to reference that, and then decommissioning Elasticsearch. So let's get into the first thing. And that is, I have a Graylog instance, and you'll see I am running version 4.3. And what we're going to do is bring up my terminal, and we are going to start. So Dan, our first step we looked at is we wanted to check our versions, but we've already done this. So I recommend that everyone do that. We've already done it and confirmed. We have Elastic 7.10.2, MongoDB 4.2, and Graylog version 4.3. So the next thing what we're going to look at is our first thing we need to do is if you want to preserve your messages, we want to ensure that we have the journal running. So what we're going to do in mine is we're going to nano the server conf file. And we'll do this really quickly. Just get my syntax appropriately. And what we want to do is scroll down. So we have message journal enabled. Now, Dan, what's the key when you enable your message journal?
So by default, we have it enabled in all our Graylog installs with a 5 gig and 12-hour repository. So essentially, I can have up to 5 gigabytes of messages in there for up to 12 hours worth of data by default, and it is enabled by default. But I suggest that we put this in this video in case someone has disabled your journal for whatever reason. Let's go turn it back on, because when we turn off Elasticsearch, we still want to potentially keep our received messages in Graylog. They'll just stay in that journal until the OpenSearch cluster comes online. And we want to size this appropriately. So if you have a 10 gig per day volume, then you're assuming you're going to be out for at least an hour, but let's just be safe and use the rule of Scotty, make it 4 hours. So let's say we need 1 gig to 2 gigs worth of storage, and by default, we're already at 5, and we want to make sure it's at least for 2 to 4 hours, but we're already at 12 hours. So by default, we're good to go the way this is. So we don't have to change anything in this case.
Perfect. All right, so we can exit out of here. And the next thing we're going to want to do is find the journal directory. So we will want to go to.
Well, we had it on the screen there a second
Actually, we
ago.
did, yes, because we had the
It
journal.
was
That's
at-
right.
Yep, and it was at
Yep.
var lib Graylog-server journal, which again is the default location.
So we're good there. So to note that you could change your journal to a different location, but in this instance, because we're there, so we're good. We
So
do have
we want to do a DF.
a DF. Yeah, we do have lots of storage here. So in this case, it's not 100% realistic as to how it's deployed on this single box. But we do have it in our root system, and we have lots of hard drive space to do the upgrade as well as the journal. So we're good there. The next steps we're going to look at is adding. You want to start with the users, Dan, and add the user?
Yeah, we can add the user first. And in this case, we're also going to have to do a tarball install because you're on a Debian distribution.
Correct. All right, so
No
what
problem.
we'll do is I'm going to take a command, and we'll note this command in the window that we're adding the user to the system, no password, and you'll see this in our documentation as well, and we'll cover that after the video. We'll provide those links and information. So we'll do this. That's finished. Now we also need to create some directories related to the OpenSearch data. So what we're going to do is do this because we'll need this for future. So we're going to make a directory in our root directory for OpenSearch data. And we are also going to do the same for the logs. See that? Okay, so that's done. Okay, and next what we're going to do is we're going to download the installation. You'll see here we're using version 1.3, and I'm just downloading it into my home directory. And while this is downloading, it shouldn't take too long. So once we do this, Dan, we've already added the users and we've added the directories. So what we need to do is run the tar installation of.
Yeah, so what we're
OpenSearch.
going to do is we're going to take the tarball, we're going to extract it into a directory in your home directory. Then we're going to move the contents to the new folders we've created, and we're going to update the permissions in those folders for that newly created user that we set up.
Excellent.
So it'll take a few seconds.
Okay, so that's there. Great, now we're there. And the next thing we're gonna do is extract the contents. So we'll do that. And with this command, you'll see here, should be fairly quick.
Depending on your storage.
This is true.
And all these instructions will be posted publicly, and we'll put the links at the end of the video, as Jeff said.
And complete. Okay. Now what we're going to need to do is, what we're doing here is moving the folder or the entire install directory to the directory we created earlier for Graylog OpenSearch. So we'll do that.
Yep, moving all the contents.
And it's completed. And next, we're going to need to change the ownership of these folders. So we have a few. We're going to do these one at a time, just so you can see what those are. So first one. And the second one. And now we're going to change the permissions. And that's complete. So you'll see those. Okay. And following this, we also need to create an empty log file for the var/log/OpenSearch for graylog.log. So we're going to do that. And we want to have that. See, that's been created. So now you have that. Okay, I'll leave that on the screen so you can grab that really quickly and see what has happened so far. And what I'll do now is we have to create a service. So I'm going to let you grab this and I'm going to pause the video just for a second. Okay, now that we took that pause and you've got that information here above with the ownership and changes, now what we need to do is create a system service. So I'm going to do this right now. You'll see this in the screen and I'll go over it. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see this. And I will clear the screen here quickly. And you'll see here on the screen the service that's being created. Scroll to the top here. For OpenSearch, it's target and all of the configuration. And we'll hit enter and that's complete. Now what we need to do is we are going to edit the Elasticsearch configuration file. We want to look at our configurations. So what we'll do here now is insert this. And what are we looking here for, Dan? We're looking for our cluster names.
Cluster name. Yep.
So this configuration has to be carried over to our OpenSearch configuration YAML file. So this is my cluster name. It's called Graylog. And our data paths, we see this being /lib/Elasticsearch. Now, as Dan had mentioned, these are the defaults in the install. You could have set up something slightly different in your configuration, in your clusters or in your nodes. So it's just important that you do note these things. Is there anything else in here, Dan, that we need to note?
On a single node, no. If this was a cluster, we'd need to take a look at the settings for the cluster and make sure that gets replicated over to the OpenSearch config as well. But in this case, no, that's it. We just need to make sure we get the data path and the cluster name, and not to forget to add action auto create index false to our OpenSearch configuration as well.
Right here. And what's the importance of that, Dan?
It will prevent a bunch of errors in Graylog. We can get into the technical details of that in a later video series, but right. It's very important. Don't miss this.
Excellent. Excellent. So we have that data. Next, what we will do is go to the directory where we have our data stored. So the next steps are
the folder we created. Yep.
You'll see here, OpenSearch and the data.
Config.
Config, sorry. That's right. Too.
We're going to move our Elasticsearch data into there. But for now, we can edit the OpenSearch config file. Under config. And just like an Elasticsearch, it's named like the product. So OpenSearch.yaml.
All right.
So let's uncomment out cluster.name and put Graylog. Let's populate path.data with data path we're going to be using.
So we are changing this to
/Graylog/OpenSearch/data.
And just good.
So log path, we're going to update that.
And we'll do that to
/var/log/OpenSearch. Should be just not a plural, just var log OpenSearch.
Oops. Var log OpenSearch. And
let's add at the bottom of the config file the index setting, the auto create index setting.
All right. So we want it to be this setting.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. And we're good to go on the OpenSearch config.
We should be. Yep.
Yep. And we'll save it. And we're good. I'm just going to clear the screen.
Let's do the copy.
All right. So what we're doing is we're taking the existing Elasticsearch data and we're going to copy it. So we're going to have to stop the Elasticsearch service. when we do that, our journal's running, so we know we're going to still get the messages. Get back here. And we'll stop it.
You should also disable it just to make sure it doesn't start up again.
Okay, so we can do that too. And I'm going to curl it. Knowing that its connection's not there. Okay, so now that we've done that, we are going to copy our data, which we did earlier. And I'm going to show you how to do this here really quick. It is, okay, and now what we're going to do is sync the data. You'll see all of the data will come across. So we've got Elasticsearch disabled. And we're going to move or copy all of that data over to the Elasticsearch directory configuration. OpenSearch directory. And you'll see it's running here. Obviously, I don't have as much data as you might have in your cluster. So bringing that over.
You get more data here than you think, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. That's actually great. All right, so that's done. Now the permissions we already changed on those folders, so we should be good.
We still want to make sure we update the permissions after we copy it, because when we rsync the data, the Elastic user is going to own that data.
Good point. So doing this, we do want to go in and change it directly on the data. So I have that, and that's this here.
See, the dash capital R is a recursive, so that will recursively get everything inside of the OpenSearch folder. So this is exactly what we want to do.
Awesome. So execute on that. And then we want to change the permissions. See the permissions here. That's complete. All right, now that we've set the permissions, there's one key thing we have to do, and we have to actually go in and set the JVM options in OpenSearch. So we will now go in, because we don't want to start up any services yet, and we're going to go into that directory here and have a quick look. So in my system, obviously it's not the same as what might be live. So I have got, in my particular instance, the JVM configuration. I think we set it to 2 gig, did we not, Dan?
Yeah, so what we want to do generally is set this to half of the system memory, but since it's a single node with limited resources, we're keeping it pretty small. 6 gigabytes of RAM, I believe you said you had.
Yeah.
And we need to leave enough memory for the system, for Mongo and Graylog. So leaving it at 2 gigs should be fairly safe.
Yeah. So note to self, we are using a test system. So this is not a live system, but it's note that before you bring things up, you want to get all of this configured. And we have that done now, Dan. So we've got that covered. So we can save that. Okay. And now what we need to do is configure. This is fairly specific. We have to configure the kernel parameters at runtime. So the first thing we want to do here is set the VM max map count. It's been set. And we also want to change this in the system control configuration. So you'll see this here as well.
This way it will survive a reboot.
Correct. Because we're not running encryption, we actually forgot to check some configuration in Graylog. So we're going to look at that right now.
In OpenSearch.
Or sorry, in OpenSearch. So we want to look at the configuration file, as we've got to add the options for, what were we adding?
Disabling security.
Disabling security, yes.
Yes.
Because we don't have it configured. So this is in /c/Graylog.
/Graylog /OpenSearch /config /OpenSearch.yaml.
All right, and we got to go down.
very bottom of the config file. Let's put it right below our auto create index settings, and you'll see a message I sent you has the exact syntax we need.
Okay, so now that we're in the file, we want to set plugins.security.disabled false.
True.
Oh, sorry, true. And plugins.
Oh, just that.
Just that one. Just the one. That's right, too.
Yep.
All right. And we will save that. Good to go. And the last step, now that we had that issue earlier with starting the service, is we're going to start the service. Actually, it didn't run. Was it enabled maybe? Is that why? I'm just trying to remember now.
It's enabled. Sudo system control start OpenSearch.service should work. I also look at the status.
I can spell today. Yay!
So we're up and running.
Yay!
Now, if we go to our Graylog web interface, we should see it starting to put data out. If we go to System,
I may have to refresh the
Overview.
window. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to refresh because we haven't done anything with this window for a while. All right. That's a neat error.
So yep, you're right. We're going to have to restart Graylog.
All right, so we'll execute on that. And we'll see that our window will go down next behind. Still waiting for it to come up. So I'll probably just wait a little bit longer here. Okay, so that's running.
Let's check the Graylog service too, just to be sure.
Definitely a lower resource type system. So shows is now up. Okay, so it took some time. We had some issues with my system as a result of just some resources, but it is now up. So if we go to the overview, which we are, we're going to look at the indexing, and there is some data in my system that needs to come back.
It'll slowly assign as the machine comes up. So there are 20 shards left to assign. And yeah, looks like it's about to go green. So looks like everything's going perfectly.
And we are finished. We are now running version 4.3 on OpenSearch. So that moves us to the end of the video. And thanks for joining us today. As always, happy logging with Graylog. I hope this was useful to you so you can understand the backend processes, creating and replacing Elasticsearch with OpenSearch. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care. We'll talk soon.
Bye for now.